The massive alien ship appeared in Earth's orbit without warning. It hung silently above the blue planet, its dark metal surface reflecting the distant sun. Smaller craft soon descended toward major cities across the globe. Humanity's first contact with an alien civilization had begun, but not in the way anyone had hoped. Admiral Zalvor stood on the command deck of the hegemony flagship, Eternal Dominance. His scaled skin shimmered under the soft purple lighting as he studied the small planet on the main view screen. 10,000 years of galactic hegemony expansion had taught his people that new worlds fell into two categories: useful or irrelevant. This planet, designated Sol 3 in their charts, seemed promising despite its primitive inhabitants. "Preliminary scans complete, Admiral," reported Subcommander Vexna, her voice melodic, despite the seriousness of the mission. "The dominant species has achieved basic space travel, but possesses no defensive capabilities that could threaten our vessels." Zalvor nodded slowly, his four eyes blinking in sequence. "Excellent. Proceed with Standard Protocol 7B for technological infants. Send contact vessels to their major population centers and prepare the annexation declaration." Up on the International Space Station, Jack Miller floated by the observation window, his heart pounding against his ribs. The former Navy SEAL had seen combat in the world's most dangerous places, but nothing had prepared him for the sight before him. The alien mothership was massive, at least 3 miles long, and had simply appeared without triggering any of Earth's detection systems. "Houston, are you seeing this?" Jack asked, his voice surprisingly steady despite his fear. The radio crackled with static before a voice responded. "We see it, Jack. It's on every radar system now. Multiple smaller craft are breaking off from the main vessel. They're heading toward Earth." Jack watched as dozens of smaller ships, each about the size of a commercial airliner, descended toward the planet's surface. "What are our orders?" "Stand by and observe. Do not engage." "I repeat, do not engage," Jack frowned. Being told to do nothing while unknown vessels approached Earth went against every protective instinct he had developed during his military career. Yet he knew humanity had no weapons that could reach orbit. All he could do was watch and report. On Earth, the world's governments scrambled to respond. Emergency meetings were called. Military forces were placed on high alert. News channels broadcast continuous updates as people around the globe looked to the sky with a mixture of wonder and terror. In Geneva, Switzerland, representatives from major world powers gathered hastily to form a unified response. They watched nervously as the largest of the alien vessels descended toward their location, hovering above the United Nations building. A message, broadcast simultaneously on all communication channels worldwide, came in a strange, mechanical voice. "People of Sol 3, the galactic hegemony greets you. Your world has been selected for annexation. Resistance is unnecessary and inadvisable. Accept citizenship status within the hegemony and receive the benefits of our 10,000-year civilization. Rejection of this generous offer will result in standard pacification protocols." The message repeated 3 times before ending. The representatives looked at each other in stunned silence. United States President Eleanor Marsh stood first. "We need to buy time while we figure out what we're dealing with. I suggest we open dialogue without committing to anything." The Chinese premier nodded in agreement. "We should approach this as a united Earth. No individual nation speaks for the planet." After hours of tense discussion, they crafted a careful response, seeking clarification on what annexation and citizenship status meant for Earth and its people. The alien response came quickly and was broadcast worldwide. "Your understanding is irrelevant. Annexation will proceed in 72 of your hours. Prepare to receive hegemony administrators." Captain Diane Russell stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant, the newest and most advanced destroyer in the United States Navy. Her orders had come directly from the President. Approach the alien vessel hovering above the Atlantic Ocean and demonstrate Earth's military capabilities while avoiding direct hostilities. "This is insane," muttered Lieutenant Paul Mason, her executive officer. That thing is at least 20 times our size. Diane nodded but kept her expression neutral for the crew's benefit. Maybe so, but we need to show them we aren't completely defenseless. Tactical, prepare to fire warning shots 2 kilometers ahead of the alien craft. Aye, Captain. Missiles armed and ready. Diane took a deep breath. Fire. The missiles launched from the Defiant's vertical launch system, streaking toward the designated coordinates. They exploded in brilliant flashes well ahead of the alien vessel, exactly as planned. The alien response was immediate and terrifying. A beam of intense blue light shot from the vessel, slicing through the ocean in a straight line that stopped just feet from the Defiant's bow. Message received. Diane said quietly. Stand down, weapons. Helmsman, maintain position. The alien vessel made no further aggressive moves, but the message was clear. Earth's most powerful weapons were toys to them. In a laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Laura Hayes worked frantically to analyze the limited data collected from the alien ships. As the nation's leading astrophysicist, she had been helicoptered to the secure facility immediately after the aliens appeared. Their hull material doesn't match any element on our periodic table, she told the assembled military officers. And the energy readings from their propulsion system suggest they've mastered some form of gravity manipulation. General William Boyd, a tall man with gray hair and stern features, frowned. Cut to the chase, Doctor. Can we fight them? Laura shook her head. Not with our current technology. It would be like cavemen throwing spears at an aircraft carrier. Then, what options do we have? Asked a young colonel. We need to learn more about them, Laura replied. Every species has weaknesses. We just don't know theirs yet. Back in Geneva, the diplomatic efforts collapsed when the alien representatives demanded Earth's complete submission, including the placement of regulatory implants in all humans for administrative efficiency. President Marsh addressed the nation that evening, her face grave but determined. My fellow Americans, today we were given an ultimatum by the alien force calling itself the Galactic Hegemony. They demand our surrender and submission to their rule. They offer no guarantees for our rights, our freedoms, or our way of life. She paused, her expression hardening. The United States, together with a coalition of nations representing Earth's united peoples, has rejected these terms. We did not seek this conflict, but we will not surrender our planet without a fight. As night fell across America, people looked up at the alien ships now visible in the darkening sky. Some prayed. Others prepared as best they could. Most simply waited, knowing that humanity stood at the precipice of its greatest challenge. No one knew that the aliens had made a critical mistake. They had conquered hundreds of species across 27 galaxies using the same methods, but they had never encountered humans before. They didn't understand that this species, evolved on what they would classify as a death world, possessed unique traits that would soon make the hegemony regret their invasion. Within 72 hours, the first hegemony ground forces landed outside major cities. The war for Earth had begun. 3 months after the invasion began, the human resistance had become more than a nuisance to the galactic hegemony. It had become a problem. Steve Garrison adjusted his binoculars, focusing on the alien patrol moving through the valley below. Once a college history professor specializing in warfare across cultures, he now led 37 survivors in Colorado's Rocky Mountains. His knowledge of historical guerrilla tactics had kept them alive and effective against the technologically superior enemy. They're using the same route as yesterday, Steve whispered to Karen Baker, his second-in-command. They never learn. Karen nodded, her face dirty and weathered from months living in the wilderness. Predictability kills. That's what you taught us. Steve allowed himself a small smile. Set the charges exactly where we planned. Wait for my signal. The hegemony forces had easily captured Earth's major cities in the first weeks. Their advanced weapons made conventional military resistance nearly impossible, but as they spread into less populated areas, they encountered something unexpected. Humans who refused to be conquered, who melted away into forests and mountains, who studied their enemy and struck when least expected. 10 miles from Steve's position, inside an abandoned gold mine repurposed as a hidden laboratory, Dr. Laura Hayes cursed as she received an electric shock from the alien device. For weeks, she had been studying captured hegemony technology, specifically their neural interface systems used to control their vehicles and weapons. "You okay, Doc?" asked Frank Wilson, a former electronics engineer who now served as her assistant. Laura nodded, sucking on her burned finger. "I'm fine, and I think I'm getting closer. Their neural systems are designed for brains with 4 processing lobes. But if I can bypass the tertiary connectors..." She trailed off, already lost in calculations. Frank smiled despite their dire situation. Laura's brilliance might give humanity its first real advantage in this war. In what was once Chicago, now a processing center for human captives, Commander Alex Murphy crawled through a maintenance tunnel beneath the alien facility. His 5-person team followed silently behind him. Before the invasion, Alex had been a police SWAT team leader. Now he led rescue missions to free humans from hegemony work camps. "According to our intel, the holding cells are 1 level up," Alex whispered. "They're moving 50 people off planet tomorrow. We get them out tonight." The team moved with practiced efficiency, using stolen alien stun weapons and their knowledge of the building's blind spots to neutralize guards. When they reached the holding area, Alex was shocked by what they found. The 50 humans weren't just being held, they were being studied. Medical equipment surrounded each bed with strange devices attached to the unconscious prisoners. "They're running tests on them," said Mia Garcia, the team's medic. "Look at these readouts: body temperature, pain response, adrenal function." Alex made a quick decision. "Change of plans. We free these people, but we also take those data tablets. We need to know what they're looking for." Back aboard the Hegemony command ship, Admiral Zalvor reviewed the latest casualty reports with growing concern. The species designation human had seemed unremarkable in initial assessments. Their technology was primitive, their global military forces disorganized. Yet after 3 months, hegemony losses were mounting at an alarming rate. Sub-Commander Vexna, "Explain these figures," Zalvor demanded, gesturing at the holographic display. Vexna's inner eyelids fluttered nervously. "We are experiencing unexpectedly high resistance in non-urban regions, Admiral. The species adapts quickly to our tactics and uses the natural terrain to their advantage. That does not explain how a primitive species has destroyed 7 Class 3 pacifiers in the past week alone. They are using our own weapons against us, Admiral. They recover equipment from fallen units and somehow reconfigure it for human use. Our latest intelligence suggests they are focusing on our supply lines rather than direct confrontation." Zalvor hissed softly, a sign of deep frustration in his species. "Increase security on all equipment. Nothing can be left behind for these creatures to scavenge. And send me all research data on human physiology. I want to understand what we're facing." In the mountains, Steve Garrison watched with satisfaction as the alien patrol walked directly into their trap. A series of explosions rocked the narrow valley, sending trees crashing down onto the patrol's vehicles. The aliens responded as they always did, seeking cover and setting up a defensive perimeter. "Now," Steve ordered. From 3 different positions, his fighters opened fire with a mix of human and alien weapons. The key to their strategy wasn't to stand and fight, but to hit fast, cause maximum damage, and disappear before reinforcements arrived. Within minutes, it was over. The patrol was destroyed, and Steve's people were collecting weapons and technology before melting back into the forests. "We'll be halfway to the next ridge before they realize what happened," Karen said as they regrouped at their fallback position. Steve nodded, but his expression remained serious. "They'll adapt eventually. They always do. But so will we." That night, as resistance cells across North America shared information via short-burst radio transmissions, a pattern emerged. The hegemony forces were increasingly focused on capturing rather than killing humans. Something had changed in their strategy. The answer came when Alex Murphy's team delivered the stolen data tablets to Dr. Laura Hayes' hidden laboratory. She spent hours translating the alien text, her expression growing increasingly puzzled. "This doesn't make sense," she finally said to the gathered resistance leaders. "These aren't just prisoner processing records. They're scientific studies." "What kind of studies?" General William Boyd asked. The former military commander now coordinated resistance efforts from their mountain hideout. Physiological studies. They're testing human reaction to pain, exposure to different atmospheres, radiation levels. Laura looked up from the tablet. They seemed confused by the results. Confused how? Steve asked. According to these notes, humans are surviving conditions that should be fatal. They've exposed captured humans to radiation levels that would kill their own species instantly. Yet the humans survive for days. They're testing our endurance because they don't understand it. General Boyd leaned forward. Are you saying we have some kind of physiological advantage? I think we might, Laura replied. From their perspective, Earth itself should be barely habitable. Our gravity, atmospheric pressure, background radiation, it's all in ranges they consider extreme. We evolved on what they would classify as a death world. A heavy silence fell over the room as they processed this information. Finally, Steve spoke up. So they invaded a planet full of creatures that evolved to survive conditions they consider lethal, and now they're wondering why we won't die easily. Laura nodded. Exactly. And there's more. They're particularly interested in our adrenal responses, how we become stronger when threatened or scared. General Boyd's weathered face broke into the first genuine smile anyone had seen from him since the invasion began. Then we need to give them something to really be afraid of, he said. It's time we took this fight to them. As the resistance, leaders planned their next moves. Admiral Zalvor received the compilation of human physiological data. Reading through it, the Admiral felt something he hadn't experienced in his 300-year career. A growing sense of doubt about the success of this conquest. These humans were more resilient than any species the hegemony had ever encountered, and they were learning far too quickly. Lieutenant Kelly Martinez adjusted the stolen hegemony uniform. It didn't fit perfectly. The aliens were taller and thinner than humans, but in the dim lighting of the research vessel, she might pass for one of the lower-ranking staff. 6 months into the occupation, humans had learned enough about their invaders to attempt more daring missions. This was the most dangerous yet. Vital signs stable, said the voice in her ear. Dr. Laura Hayes monitored Kelly remotely from the hidden base. The chemical dye on your skin is holding. Remember, you have 4 hours before it starts to fade. Kelly touched the communicator hidden in her ear. Copy that. Going in now. The plan was simple but dangerous. Infiltrate a hegemony research vessel disguised as a captured specimen transport, gather intelligence on their scientific studies of humans, and get out. Kelly had volunteered immediately. Before the invasion, she had been an undercover police officer. Now those skills might help save her species. She moved through the corridors of the alien ship, careful to mimic the distinctive gait of the hegemony species. Shoulders hunched, head tilted slightly downward. The vessel was massive, at least, a mile long, orbiting Earth like a predatory bird watching its prey. Kelly followed the directions memorized from stolen ship schematics, making her way to the main research lab. 2 guards stood at the entrance, their scaled skin shimmering under the purple lights. She approached confidently, keeping her eyes down as she'd been instructed. The guards barely glanced at her as they verified her stolen access card and waved her through. What she saw inside froze her blood. Dozens of humans floated in transparent tanks, connected to machines that monitored their bodily functions. Some appeared conscious, their eyes following her movement with desperate hope. Others seemed to be in medically induced comas. Kelly forced herself to move normally, fighting the urge to free them immediately. That wasn't the mission, not yet. She approached a data terminal and inserted the device Laura had created to extract information. Download initiated, she whispered. These monsters are keeping humans like lab rats. Focus on the mission, Laura reminded her. We can't help them if we don't understand what the aliens are doing. As the download progressed, Kelly scanned the room, documenting everything she saw with the micro camera hidden in her uniform. The aliens were subjecting humans to various tests: extreme temperatures, different atmospheric compositions, high-pressure environments, even radiation exposure. A tall hegemony scientist approached her, speaking in their clicking language. Kelly's translator device caught the words. New specimen transport? Where are your authorization codes? Kelly's heart raced, but she kept her composure. Central Command Authorization, she replied in practiced hegemony speech patterns, presenting a forged document. Priority research materials. The scientist studied the document, then nodded. Take the specimens to Laboratory 7. We are testing tolerance to atmospheric nitrogen variations today. Kelly nodded and moved away quickly, heading toward another terminal farther from the suspicious scientist. The download completed with a soft beep and she pocketed the device. Now she just needed to get out alive. Back on Earth, in the underground bunker beneath the Appalachian Mountains, General William Boyd studied the tactical display showing resistance movements worldwide. What had begun as isolated groups fighting for survival had evolved into a coordinated global resistance. When conventional military tactics failed against the technologically superior invaders, humans adapted. They used Earth itself as a weapon, leading alien forces into dangerous terrain, using weather patterns to their advantage, and exploiting the invaders' physical weaknesses. New report from the European front, said his communications officer. They successfully destroyed an alien processing center in former Berlin. Minimal human casualties. Boyd nodded with grim satisfaction. Any word from our operative on the research vessel? Not yet, sir. Still within mission parameters. Boyd turned his attention back to the map. 6 months of brutal occupation had taught them much about their enemy. The hegemony was vast and powerful, but not invincible. They had weaknesses. They suffered in Earth's higher gravity. They couldn't tolerate certain frequencies of sound, and most importantly, they underestimated humans consistently. Sir, called one of his staff, we've intercepted a hegemony transmission from their flagship to their homeworld. It's encrypted, but our analysts think it's Admiral Zalvor reporting to his superiors. Get it to the decryption team immediately, Boyd ordered. Anything from that monster might give us an edge. Admiral Zalvor stood before the holographic projection of the Hegemony High Council, trying to mask his growing concern. The 12 ancient beings stared at him with their multiple eyes, their scaled faces unreadable to most. But Zalvor had served the council long enough to recognize their displeasure. Explain these losses, Admiral, demanded the first counselor, her voice crackling through the quantum transmission. A simple annexation has become the most costly operation in 1,000 years. Zalvor straightened his spine. High Counselors, I must report that the species on Sol 3 represents a unique challenge. Our initial assessment failed to recognize their true nature. What nature is that? Asked another counselor. They are Deathworld evolved, Excellency. They survived planetary conditions that should have prevented complex life from developing. Their physical resilience exceeds anything in our records. He transmitted the research data compiled over months of study. Humans can survive radiation levels that would kill our strongest soldiers. Their bone density allows them to function in gravitational forces that would crush our bodies. They can withstand temperature variations that would send our systems into shock. The council members examined the data in silence before the first counselor spoke again. This explains their physical capabilities, but not their continued resistance. Other species have had physical advantages, yet all submitted to the hegemony. Eventually, Zalvor hesitated before answering. It is their psychology that truly sets them apart, Excellency. When faced with overwhelming force, most species surrender to preserve their lives. Humans do the opposite. They fight harder when victory seems impossible. They sacrifice individuals willingly for group survival. And most disturbing, they learn from defeat instead of being demoralized by it. Are you suggesting this species cannot be conquered, Admiral? The question carried dangerous implications for his career. I am suggesting that standard protocols are ineffective. We must either commit to full planetary sterilization or develop an entirely new approach. 3. Silence that followed was heavy with significance. The hegemony had not needed to sterilize a planet in over 5,000 years. Meanwhile, Kelly Martinez had completed her mission and was being debriefed in the Resistance headquarters. The data she recovered painted a startling picture. They're afraid of us, she told General Boyd and the assembled Resistance leaders. Their scientific reports classify Earth as an extreme death world. with conditions that should make complex life impossible. They can't understand how we function in what they consider lethal conditions. Dr. Laura Hayes projected the translated documents for everyone to see. According to their physiology models, humans shouldn't exist. Our cellular structure, our endocrine system, our pain tolerance, it all defies their understanding of biology. Can we use this to our advantage? Asked Steve Garrison. Laura nodded, her eyes bright with the first real hope since the invasion began. We already are. Every time they think they've found our breaking point, we survive. Every time they expect us to surrender, we fight back harder. It's confusing their entire strategy. General Boyd smiled grimly. Then it's time to confuse them even more. Dr. Hayes, how close are you to adapting their neural interface technology for human use? With this new data? Days, not weeks, Laura replied confidently. Boyd turned to the others. Then prepare your teams. Phase 2 begins now. We're taking the fight to them in a way they'll never expect. On his flagship, Admiral Zalvor received a new report that made him question everything he thought he knew about warfare. Somehow, humans had adapted hegemony technology to their own physiology, something no other conquered species had accomplished. So quickly, if ever. The report ended with a warning that would soon prove prophetic. Human adaptation rate exceeds all models. Recommendation: consider strategic withdrawal while options remain. 1 year had passed since the hegemony first appeared in Earth's skies. What they had expected to be a simple conquest had become a costly, ongoing war. Human resistance grew stronger each month, learning and adapting at a pace that alarmed the hegemony's military strategists. Dr. Laura Hayes made the final adjustments to the neural interface adapter. After months of reverse engineering alien technology, she had created a device that would allow humans to control hegemony vessels. The breakthrough came after analyzing the data Kelly Martinez had stolen from the research ship. "Is it ready?" asked Lieutenant Ryan Collins, a former Air Force pilot who had volunteered to be the first test subject. Laura nodded nervously. "In theory, the interface should translate your neural patterns to match what their systems expect. But Ryan, we've never tested this on a human before. No time like the present," Ryan said with a grin that didn't quite hide his fear. General Boyd and a team of scientists watched from behind protective glass as Laura attached the device to Ryan's temples. The captured hegemony fighter craft sat in the center of the underground hangar, its alien controls glowing with soft purple light. "Neural link initiating," Laura announced, monitoring the readings on her tablet. "Ryan, you'll feel a strange sensation like a buzzing in your mind. That's normal." Ryan winced as the device activated. "I hear something, like whispers in a language I don't understand." "That's the ship's systems," Laura explained. "Don't try to understand the words, just focus on the images I showed you. Imagine the ship powering up." Ryan closed his eyes in concentration. The craft's engines hummed to life, its lights brightening from purple to blue. "It's working," someone gasped. Ryan opened his eyes, a look of wonder crossing his face. "I can feel the ship, like it's an extension of my body. It's incredible." Laura checked her readings again. "The ship is accepting your commands. The neural patterns are synchronizing faster than I expected." "Let's see if I can make it fly," Ryan said. He focused his thoughts, visualizing the movements they had studied from captured hegemony flight records. The ship rose smoothly from the hangar floor, hovering several feet in the air. Ryan's face broke into a wide smile. "It responds faster than any aircraft I've ever flown. The hegemony is in for a surprise." General Boyd turned to his staff. "Begin adapting Dr. Hayes' interface for mass production. I want a squadron ready within 2 weeks." On the hegemony flagship, Admiral Zalvor faced the most difficult decision of his long career. The latest casualty reports showed an alarming trend. Hegemony forces were losing ground across Earth's surface. Their technological advantage was shrinking as humans captured and adapted their weapons and vehicles. "Admiral, the High Council is requesting an update," reported Subcommander Vexna. Zalvor sighed, a very human gesture he had unconsciously adopted. "Prepare the quantum transmitter and include the complete data on human adaptation rates. They need to understand what we're facing. The Hegemony High Council received his report with stunned silence. Then the first counselor spoke, her voice colder than ever. You propose a tactical retreat, Admiral? In the 10,000-year history of the Hegemony, we have never abandoned a conquest. I propose a strategic withdrawal to regroup and develop new approaches, Zalvor clarified. This species requires methods we have not needed before. Perhaps you have grown weak, Admiral, suggested another counselor. Perhaps another commander would achieve better results. Zalvor stood firm. I have conquered 87 worlds for the Hegemony. I have never encountered a species like this one. He transmitted a new file to the council. This is footage from a human dwelling our forces raided last week. The inhabitants were juvenile humans, what they call children. The council watched, as small humans, none more than 10 years old, systematically disabled a Hegemony battle droid using simple traps and stolen tools. The droid, designed to withstand military weapons, was brought down by children using their environment and improvised weapons. Their young are already effective fighters, Zalvor explained. They adapt to our technology faster than any species we have encountered. They view defeat not as final but as a learning opportunity. The council members exchanged glances. Finally, the first counselor spoke again. We will consider your assessment, Admiral. For now, hold your position and minimize further losses. The transmission ended, and Zalvor knew his career might end with it. But after a year fighting humans, he had developed a respect for them that bordered on admiration. They deserved better than the fate the Hegemony had planned. At the Resistance headquarters, Lieutenant Kelly Martinez prepared for her most dangerous mission yet. After months of training with the neural interface, she would command a captured Hegemony cruiser with a human crew against the main fleet's supply lines. The plan is insane, said Commander Alex Murphy as they reviewed the mission details. You're taking a single cruiser against their entire supply fleet. Kelly nodded. That's why it will work. They'll never expect it. She pointed to a section of space on the tactical display. We'll approach through this radiation belt. Their ships avoid it because the radiation levels are lethal to their species. Those levels aren't exactly healthy for humans either, Alex pointed out. No, but we can survive short exposures. Dr. Hayes has modified radiation suits that will protect us for the time we need. Kelly's expression hardened. We hit their supply ships, destroy what we can, and get out before their main force can respond. General Boyd had approved the plan despite its risks. After a year of defensive fighting, humans were taking the offensive. Similar operations were planned worldwide, targeting Hegemony weaknesses with increasingly sophisticated attacks. In a Hegemony base in what was once Eastern Europe, a young officer named Zelnar submitted a troubling report to his superiors. His research team had been studying human warfare throughout their history. The humans deliberately employ tactics that we consider illogical or even suicidal, he wrote. They take risks no Hegemony commander would authorize. They sacrifice individual lives for strategic advantages. Most disturbing, they have begun using our own technology against us in ways we never anticipated. The report concluded with a warning. If current trends continue, humans will achieve tactical parity within one standard year, despite their technological disadvantage. Their evolutionary history on a death world has created a species optimized for warfare in ways the Hegemony has never encountered. The report was forwarded to Admiral Zalvor, who read it with grim recognition. His own observations had led him to the same conclusion. The Hegemony's entire military doctrine was based on overwhelming force and the psychological impact of superior technology. Neither was working against humans. As Kelly Martinez's captured cruiser approached the Hegemony supply fleet, she felt a strange calm. The human crew worked with quiet efficiency, each trained on their specific systems through the neural interfaces. Radiation. Belt in 30 seconds, reported Ryan Collins, now her navigation officer. All crew secure radiation protocols. The ship entered the swirling energy field that no Hegemony vessel would willingly approach. Warning systems blared as radiation levels rose, but the modified shields held. "They don't see us," Kelly said, watching the enemy ships on the tactical display. "Begin attack run. Target their fuel transports first." The human-piloted hegemony cruiser burst from the radiation field, weapons already firing. The supply ships, caught completely by surprise, had no time to raise their defensive shields. Admiral Zalvor received the distress call from the supply fleet with a mixture of alarm and reluctant admiration. Somehow, humans had not only captured a hegemony cruiser but had mastered its operation and developed tactics no hegemony commander would consider. As reports of similar attacks worldwide reached his command center, Zalvor made his decision. Regardless of the High Council's reaction, he would order a general withdrawal from Earth orbit. This species had earned their freedom through innovation and courage that impressed even him, a veteran of 1,000 conquests. Perhaps, he thought, the hegemony has finally met its match. 18 months after they arrived, the massive hegemony ships began to leave Earth's orbit. Humans around the world watched the sky with a mixture of disbelief, joy, and caution. No one fully trusted this apparent retreat. Admiral Zalvor stood on the command deck of his flagship, watching the blue planet grow smaller on the viewscreen. His decision to withdraw the hegemony forces had been met with outrage from the High Council, but the mounting losses had eventually convinced them. This was not a defeat, they told themselves. It was a strategic repositioning. "All vessels report ready for hyperspace jump, Admiral," said Subcommander Vexna Zalvor raised a hand. "Not yet. My vessel will remain behind temporarily." "Admiral?" Vexna's inner eyelids fluttered in surprise. "I have requested permission to meet with the human leaders, to establish diplomatic relations." The concept was almost foreign to the hegemony, which had always dealt with other species through conquest, not negotiation. "Is that wise, Admiral? These creatures have proven dangerously unpredictable." Zalvor turned all four eyes toward his loyal officer. "That is precisely why we should speak with them rather than fight them. The hegemony has existed for 10,000 years because it adapts. Perhaps it is time we adapt again." In the ruins of Geneva, General William Boyd supervised the preparations for the meeting. The once beautiful city had been heavily damaged during the occupation, but its symbolic importance as a center of international cooperation made it the perfect location for this historic encounter. "Security teams in position," reported Steve Garrison, now a colonel in the Unified Earth Defense Force. "If this is a trap, we're ready." Boyd nodded, his weathered face showing little emotion. After 18 months of brutal warfare, he had learned to hide his feelings well. "Let's hope it isn't. We've lost enough people already." A single hegemony shuttle descended from the clouds, landing in the cleared area before the damaged United Nations building. Armed soldiers surrounded the landing zone, their weapons, a mix of human and adapted alien technology, trained on the vessel. The shuttle's door opened with a soft hiss. Admiral Zalvor emerged alone, unarmed, his tall frame moving with deliberate slowness to avoid alarming the human defenders. Boyd stepped forward, flanked by representatives from other major Earth powers. "I am General William Boyd of the Earth Defense Force. Why have you requested this meeting?" Zalvor bowed slightly, a gesture he had learned from studying human customs. "I am Admiral Zalvor of the Galactic Hegemony. I come to formally recognize the sovereignty of your species and your world." A murmur ran through the assembled humans. After so much death and destruction, the words seemed inadequate, almost insulting. "You invaded our planet, killed millions of our people, and now you just want to talk?" Boyd's voice remained steady, but anger flashed in his eyes. "We were wrong," Zalvor replied simply. Those 3 words, never before uttered by a hegemony official to another species, hung in the air between them. Inside the damaged building, representatives from Earth's nations sat across from Admiral Zalvor at a makeshift table. The meeting was not a peace negotiation. Earth had not formally declared war, as the hegemony had simply invaded. Instead, it was a recognition of reality. "The hegemony acknowledges humanity as a sovereign species," Zalvor stated, his translator conveying his words to the assembled humans. We propose a non-aggression pact. Your species will contain its expansion to your home system and nearby unclaimed systems for the next century. In return, the hegemony will recognize these territories as human space, not subject to future annexation attempts. President Eleanor Marsh, who had led the United States through the occupation, leaned forward. And why should we trust any agreement with the hegemony after what you've done to our world? Zalvor gestured to a data device on the table. This contains star charts marking all hegemony-controlled systems and those of our allied species. It also includes technical data on our faster-than-light travel systems. Consider it a gesture of respect. The human representatives exchanged glances. Such information was invaluable. It would advance Earth's space technology by decades, if not centuries. This isn't about trust, Zalvor continued. It is about mutual recognition. You fought the hegemony to a standstill using captured technology and improvised weapons. No species has ever done this before. We recognize your right to exist independently because you have earned it through your resistance. The discussions continued for hours, covering details of the non-aggression pact, the return of human prisoners, and the establishment of boundaries in space. Not a peace treaty between equals. The hegemony still controlled vast regions of space, beyond Earth's reach, but an acknowledgement that humanity was too costly to subjugate. As the meeting neared its end, Dr. Laura Hayes approached Admiral Zalvor with a question that had bothered her throughout the occupation. Why? She asked simply. The hegemony has conquered hundreds of other species. Why are you willing to negotiate with us when you've subjugated so many others? Zalvor considered her question carefully before responding. Because you are the first species we've encountered who fights harder when victory seems impossible. His translator paused, seeking the right words for concepts that didn't exist in hegemony language. Other species surrendered when shown our power. When we showed you our power, your people had only one response: defiance. The Admiral's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep thought in his species. In 10,000 years of expansion, the hegemony has never retreated from a conquest until now. Your adaptability, your willingness to sacrifice for future generations, your ability to learn from defeat instead of being demoralized by it, these traits make humanity unique among the species we have encountered. As the meeting concluded and Admiral Zalvor prepared to return to his ship, he handed General Boyd a small data device different from the one given to the political representatives. "What's this?" Boyd asked suspiciously. "A personal message I have transmitted to the hegemony database," Zalvor replied. "An update to Earth's classification in our records. I thought you might want to see it." After the Admiral departed and his ship disappeared into the stars, Boyd reviewed the message with his senior staff. Under threat assessment, Zalvor had written simply, "If encountered, do not engage. Run." In the decades that followed, humanity expanded cautiously into the stars. The technology adapted from their brief but educational contact with the galactic hegemony accelerated their progress by centuries. They built ships that could reach nearby star systems, established colonies on habitable worlds, and prepared defenses against future threats. The reputation that preceded them, of beings evolved on a death world who viewed impossible odds as merely a challenge, served as both protection and burden. Some alien species avoided contact with humans entirely, while others sought alliances with these strange, resilient creatures. On distant worlds throughout hegemony space, a new protocol was quietly distributed to all commanders. If human ships are detected, maintain distance and contact diplomatic corps immediately. The justification for this protocol was classified, but rumors spread among the lower ranks. Rumors of the species that fought the hegemony to a standstill, using captured technology and improvised weapons. The most persistent rumor, never officially confirmed but whispered throughout the galaxies, was that humans were the only species in known space that the mighty hegemony had ever warned its own people to flee from rather than fight.